Revenge films.
My wife, Lavina, and I were an ordinary married couple. However, one day, I was thrust into hell. That day, I went home at the same time as always. But when I got off the train, I received a message from Lavina. She told me that she had an important matter to discuss with me, so I had to go home as early as possible. I had no clue what kind of matter needed discussing, because I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary when I left the house for work that morning. I had no idea what this matter might be. That's why I was restless and nervous on my way home. I could tell by the way she worded her message that this was not a good matter to discuss about. I wasn't wrong about that prediction. When I arrived home, a man I'd never seen before was sitting on the couch with my wife. Lavina and I have a baby. I will take responsibility, so please, break up with her, this mysterious man said to my face. It was a bolt out of the blue. My mind couldn't keep up with what was happening in front of me. Wait a second. What do you mean? What do I mean? I mean exactly what I said. Your wife is pregnant with my baby, so please, break up with her.
I want to be with Ivan, so let's get a divorce.
Lavina was sitting on our couch in our living room with a man I'd never seen before who apparently got her pregnant. She held the man's hand and begged me to get a divorce. It's sad to say, but I could tell that she was head over heels for him. Seriously? You've got to be kidding me! There's no way I'll allow you to do that!
But the father of this baby inside my belly is Ivan.
Yes, that's right. Lavina chose me over you. What? You've got to be kidding me! Get out of here! Both of you! Out of here! Now! After I pushed them out of the house, I broke into tears by the front door. I thought about why this happened, what I did wrong for us to end up in this situation, and when my wife started having an affair with that man. I tried to think and think and think, but I couldn't conclude, and the world around me went black. The next day arrived, but nothing changed. If I didn't do anything about this, I knew that I would break. So I decided to call my close friend. After I told him everything that happened, he suggested that I immediately hire a lawyer. So I decided to listen to his advice and hired a lawyer. However, a few days after Lavina walked out of the house with the man, she came back home a few days later by herself. It was a weekday, so I went to work that day. But when I arrived home, I noticed that the lights in the house were on. I was shocked that all the lights were on. At first, I thought that I might have just forgotten to turn them off. But I thought it was weird because everything was on. When I arrived at the front door, I was even more surprised to find that the door was unlocked. Dreading that a burglar might be inside the house, I slowly and carefully walked inside. What shocked me even more was the identity of the person. It was Lavina. What are you doing here?
Oh, welcome home, love. What do you mean? I'm cooking dinner, can't you tell?
Stop messing with me. Why are you inside this house like nothing happened? You had an affair. What's even more disturbing is that you're pregnant with another man's baby. Do you even understand the situation? Lavina's response shocked me even more.
The baby in my belly is your child, you know? I was just mistaken about this baby being Ivan's. It's not Ivan's baby after all.
Stop messing with me! I heard loud and clear with my ears that you got pregnant with that man's baby!
That's why I'm saying that this was just a mistake about who the father is. I did have an affair with another man. I'm not denying that. But this child is yours, you know?
What in the world are you saying? When you already admitted that you slept with another man? That's enough! Get out of this house! I grabbed her arm, but she clung onto me and said,
Please forgive me, love. I will apologize, so please. I'm sorry.
I was shocked by Lavina's behavior this time because it was completely different from how she acted that day. After that, Lavina kept on talking on and on and on, so I learned why she came back to the house alone. After Lavina and the man walked out of the house, they happily headed to the man's house. The man came from quite a wealthy family, so his father didn't accept the baby who was made out of a love affair. Of course, remarrying is never an option, and if the man ever wants to be with Lavina, he won't be allowed to inherit anything from his family. Hearing his father threaten him, his demeanor changed, and he got rid of Lavina and the baby. Lavina had nowhere to go, so she came back to the house and she told me that the baby was mine. You've got to be kidding me. The father of the baby in your belly is no doubt that man. Make him acknowledge that the baby belongs to him.
He and I are over. We were just playing and having a little fun. I truly feel sorry for what I've done.
Oh, you're sorry now? Your apology does not resonate in my heart at all. If you don't get out of here, I'll be the one to leave. My mind is set on getting a divorce, and I will properly demand alimony from you. So you better brace yourself.
Derek, wait!
Lavina begged me to stay, but I walked out of the house and I stayed at a hotel that night. I then talked to my lawyer again, and I then demanded alimony from both Lavina and the man. A few days later, my mother-in-law heard about the situation. She brought Lavina with her, and they barged into my house. Frankly speaking, I hated my mother-in-law. The moment they arrived, my mother-in-law looked at me and said,
Derek, Lavinia is asking you to start over, but you rejected her and you even demanded alimony from her.
Of course I did. That's what anyone would do if they were in my situation. You are aware of the reason why it has come to this, aren't you?
Yes, of course I know. Lavina had an affair, right? But the reason why she did is because you didn't give her the love and attention that she needed, right? Besides, my daughter has apologized again and again. Why haven't you still forgiven her?
My mother-in-law was completely Lavina's ally, and she lashed out her unreasonable anger at me.
You're demanding alimony from her, but the reality is that you just want to take money from her, don't you?
Of course not. It's not that I want money. I'm just demanding alimony for the scar that she left in my heart for cheating on me with another man.
Stop nitpicking like that. Can't you see that my daughter is properly apologizing? All you have to do is accept what happened and apologize too. You are such a greedy man. You just want to get money from my daughter because you don't earn that much.
My income's not as low as she says, but it seems like my mother-in-law wanted her daughter to marry a wealthier man, so she always looked down on me. She apparently was furious because I didn't accept Lavina's apology for having an affair with another man. Would you be able to forgive your husband if he did the same thing to you? I asked. To which she replied,
We're talking about your problem right now.
It's more like her daughter's problem than mine. I heard that a divorce is more exhausting than a wedding, but I realized at that time that it was true. I truly realized that day that marriage is not just the union of two individuals. I forced my wife and mother-in-law out of the house that day, but they refused to listen when I told them to speak to me through a lawyer. I really didn't know what to do anymore. Anyway, I heard that the man's side was steadily advanced because I sent a content-certified letter to his parents and his boss. It seems like he was in sales, and since he worked at a company that puts trust above anything else, there was no way they would allow a man who had a love affair to continue working on sales. So he was moved to a new post. The man was having an affair with my wife at that time, but for some reason, he was confident with being in my house. And it felt very strange that he looked so unconcerned. I have a calm and collected personality, so Lavina thought that if she stood firm, I would eventually agree to get a divorce. That's what she apparently ingrained in his mind. So it seemed like he didn't expect me to expose him to his boss. I didn't know what to feel when I realized that such an idiot fell for Lavina's whims. The man was fired from his job, but apparently, his parents were the type to care about what other people think of them. So they told me that they will pay me a handsome amount of money as an alimony payment for their son's behavior. They paid me without a hitch. After that, I heard that the man's parents disowned him. It meant that he lost his right to inherit his family's wealth. The only problem that needed to be dealt with was my wife. But since that day, Lavina and her mother continuously stormed into my house for several days straight. I grew more and more stressed each day because of them. However, one day, my father-in-law marched to my house, and then he said, I was wondering where the two of you went every single day. Do either of you have any idea that what you're doing is a very shameless act? I've been working my hardest every day to provide for my family. Not only did you betray me, but you also took sides with our daughter, who clearly did something unforgivable. Do you really think that's what a mother should be doing? Both of you are shameless. Do you have no idea how irresponsible and selfish our daughter's actions were? My father-in-law was beyond furious. Both Lavina and my mother-in-law shriveled, because never had they ever thought that my father-in-law would follow them here.
But honey, there is a baby inside Lavinia's belly.
But Derek's not the father of the baby, is he? How do you expect him to raise someone else's child, you morons?
Eep!
I will never allow you to come here again. Besides, it's just normal that he would demand alimony from you. Learn how it feels not to be able to rebuild with someone who betrayed you. My father-in-law was enraged and dragged them home. After that, the divorce went without a hitch, and I received the alimony payment. My ex-wife apparently wasn't able to afford to pay the alimony, so my father-in-law paid it in the meantime. But from now on, it seems that my ex-wife has to work without spending on unnecessary stuff. Lavina will be going back and forth between her parents' house and the workplace as soon as she gives birth to the baby. She will continue to work until she finishes paying back the tens of thousands of dollars in alimony to her father. Well, the baby is innocent and is not to blame for anything, so they said that they would hire a babysitter to take care of him or her for the time being. As for my mother-in-law, she's been living without inconvenience until now, but if she's stuck doing nothing in the house, my father-in-law thought that she would think of evil things, so he made her work part-time scrubbing the floor. She got what she deserved. It started with my wife and her lover, then my mother-in-law joined along the way, but things got more peaceful around me. I was surrounded by crazy, unreasonable people, and it ate out of my mental health. But I'm truly thankful that my father-in-law is a sane person. That day, I was invited by my friend Jason to his house. I have a girlfriend who I've been with for 2 years now. My girlfriend Emily and I are good friends with Jason and his girlfriend, so we go out on a double date sometimes. But then one day, Jason uttered something shocking. "Your girlfriend had an abortion, right? Is she alright? Are you alright?" I had no idea what Jason was talking about, so I asked him, "Huh? What are you talking about? What? What do you mean?" At that moment, Jason realized that he'd said something that he shouldn't have said. He told me that it was nothing and tried to hide it. But after what he said, there's no way I wouldn't suspect anything. Jason ended up telling me the truth. That's when I found out about the shocking truth that my girlfriend was hiding from me. My girlfriend had an abortion without consulting me. Wait, what? Jason? Is that true? Where did you hear this from? Yes, I got it from a credible source. My girlfriend told me that she heard it from your girlfriend. She wouldn't joke about topics like this, you know? Yes. You're not wrong. I then remembered that my girlfriend, Emily, told me that she had to go to her parents' house because her mother, who's living in the countryside, got ill. When I asked Jason when Emily got the abortion, it fits perfectly with the date that Emily told me she would go to her parents' home. That's when I thought that she probably went to a hospital there and got the baby aborted. Apparently, Jason assumed that Emily and I decided on the abortion together. Of course Jason assumed that, because it'd be strange if I didn't know about the abortion in the first place. After that, I said goodbye to Jason and drove straight back home. I then grilled Emily the moment I arrived home. "Emily, is it true that you had an abortion without discussing it with me?" Emily was shocked that I knew about the abortion and made a face. "Answer the question!"
Because if I discussed it with you, you wanted me to give birth to the baby.
Of course I want you to give birth to the baby. Because the baby's ours. And of course, because it's a living being.
I still wanted to keep partying and having fun.
What? I couldn't believe that the reason why she got an abortion was because she wanted to continue partying and have fun. You gotta be kidding me! Who in their right mind would get rid of a living being just so they can party around? You didn't even discuss it with me!
I told you already that you'll want me to give birth to the baby if I discussed it with you. That's why I didn't want to tell you.
I couldn't believe that Emily was so unconcerned about her baby. I was filled with rage and despair. There was nothing I could do.
I already had the abortion, so there's no point in talking about this after all. This topic is over.
This is not a problem that can be ended so easily. I was so angry that I thought I was going to hit her if I didn't get out of there. So I ran out of the house without thinking twice. My emotions were all messed up. Emily and I had been in a relationship for 2 years already, and I was even thinking of marrying her in the future. However, I couldn't believe that she was that unconcerned about getting the abortion. It was something that I didn't understand at all. I didn't feel like going back to the house where Emily was. So I went back to Jason's house and asked him if I could stay for the night. When I told him the whole story of what happened, Jason called his girlfriend, who knew about the abortion. That's when another shocking truth was revealed. I learned that Emily revealed her affair to Jason's girlfriend. Apparently, the man was a very popular host at a host club, and she also revealed that she paid a ton of money to that host. What's more, was that Emily didn't know who the father of the baby was. The hosts looked very different from each other, so she was afraid that if ever the baby didn't look like me, I'd think that the baby wasn't mine, and I'd demand that a DNA test be conducted. However, if Emily had an abortion, I wouldn't have to know about the baby or the affair. That's why Emily told her friend that she would get an abortion. Emily and Jason's girlfriend used to be close friends, but after she learned what Emily did, she was appalled by Emily's actions, and her opinion of Emily changed. Also, she couldn't forgive Emily for betraying her boyfriend's friend. That's why she told me everything that she knew about Emily's affair. According to Jason's girlfriend, Emily went to the host club almost every day, and she has a lot of debt to the host club. I was also told that Emily didn't pay her debt yet. Her salary wasn't enough to pay for her debt, so she even used my money to pay for it. However, that wasn't enough to pay for her debt, so for the remaining balance, she was forced to sell her body to a stranger. But it seems like Emily didn't mind doing that at all. She even went so far as to say that she was lucky to be able to do that because she can make money and use the money to go to the host club more often. The more I listened to Jason's girlfriend's story, the more Emily's rotten parts were exposed. It got me thinking that there's a possibility that the baby might not have been mine or the host's, but it might be the third guy's baby. Learning all the truth that day, I became very hopeless. But I felt another emotion other than hopelessness. It was anger. I was so enraged that I decided to take my revenge on Emily and the host. So first of all, I decided to talk to Emily's parents and reveal to them everything that their daughter did. Her parents told me that she used to be an irrepressible daughter, and she got into all sorts of trouble before she met me. Emily got fired from her part-time job and even worked at hostess clubs. Her parents were very worried about her. However, they thought that their daughter would become a good person ever since she and I started being in a relationship. Her parents liked me because of that. It was very difficult for me to tell Emily's parents about it, but I couldn't forgive what Emily did at all. That's why, the next day, after staying at Jason's house, I went straight to Emily's parents' house. Emily's parents' house is located in the countryside, a completely different scenery from the city where we live. Her parents were surprised when they saw me visit them, but when I told them everything that their daughter did, her father got angry.
Bring her here, immediately!
He was so enraged. Her mother then called her to come home at once. Emily then hopped into her car and drove to her parents' house, but she had no idea that I was already there. Then, the moment Emily arrived at the house, she was met with her angry father.
You are such a good-for-nothing child! You really are hopeless! You ought to be ashamed of yourself!
He slapped her face with such force that she fell to the floor. She had no idea what was happening, so she cried and screamed. Emily then yelled why he was treating her that way. That's when I appeared from the other room. Seeing me appear out of nowhere, Emily was shocked and confused.
Matt! Why in the world are you here? What are you doing here?
I learned everything that you did. That's why I came here and told your parents about it.
Huh? What did you tell them?
What did I tell them? Everything! I told them everything! From the baby in your belly, to the affair that you had with the host, and everything else after that. That's when Emily turned pale.
How did you know all that?
Seriously? That's what you're thinking right now? Who told me doesn't matter!
I can't believe that you betrayed Matt when he's the one who turned you into a good person! I can't believe that you even got an abortion for your protection! That is not what a human being would do! Apologize to Matt, right here and right now, and atone for all your sins!
Ouch! That hurts, Dad!
Emily's father forced her to apologize to me, and he even pushed her to bow to me deeply.
I'm sorry.
I'm apologizing to you, so forgive me!
I am truly sorry for what my daughter did to you. I will give back all the money that she spent. I will never permit her to step out of this village.
What? Wait a second. I didn't agree to that yet. I don't want that kind of punishment.
Shut up! Nothing good will come out if problematic people like you continue to live in the city. Live here without causing any problems for the rest of your life!
Emily had an inferiority complex about growing up in a small village, so this decision hit a huge blow to her ego. But I don't care about her anymore. This is a very peaceful village surrounded by nature. But young people from this village don't want to continue living here. So once they reach a certain age, most of them go out of this village to a huge city, with more opportunities waiting for them. That's why there's an extreme number of senior citizens here. I can imagine what Emily's life would be like living in this small village with the old folks. That day, I left her in the village and went back to the city, but Emily begged me for forgiveness until the last minute. A few days later, Emily's parents paid me via bank transfer the amount that their daughter used for my wallet. According to her father, he'll make Emily work on their farm and pay them back the whole amount that they sent me. After I was done dealing with Emily, I hired someone to find out more about the host and the host club. And then I went to the police to report the incident with evidence. Apparently, after the host made Emily sell her body, he targeted men who were married and threatened them that he'd expose their secret to their wives. Of course, I had the pieces of evidence with me, so the host was arrested immediately. Apparently, the man was a very popular host, being the third highest producing. But because of the crimes he committed, he got fired from his job. Moreover, a bunch of crimes he committed kept coming up, so he was put behind bars with no progression deferment. I have no idea whose baby the one in Emily's stomach was, but if ever he or she will be reborn into another family, I hope that the baby will be born into a loving and caring one.
My wife, Wilma, and I are living together, and we've been married for 3 years. I'm one of the members of the board at the company, and it might sound like I'm bragging, but I earn quite a good amount despite my young age. I can support our living with just my job alone. So ever since we got married, my wife works at home as a housewife, doing the household chores and keeping our home warm. Wilma's good at cooking, so I get to eat delicious food every day, and she diligently cleans the house and washes the clothes. She even irons my clothes, so I get to wear clean and crisp clothing to work every day. I didn't have any complaints regarding my wife. That's why I thought that my marriage was smooth sailing. However, one day, something happened that overturned my thinking. I don't usually stare and take a hard look at my wife's lingerie. But all of a sudden, one day, my wife started wearing lingerie with a completely different design than she used to. But it's not the type of design that I prefer. It's the flashy kind of design. And what made me think suspicious even more is that it was hidden away at the back of the drawer. She doesn't wear it often, but sometimes, when I get home from a long work trip, I see it hung outside on the balcony. When I saw that, I thought it was suspicious. I guess this is what you call a male intuition. But despite thinking that it's suspicious, I didn't have any other pieces of evidence, and I checked her phone too, but I didn't find anything strange there. However, I can't wholly prove that she's completely innocent either, so a hazy feeling remained in my heart. Then one day, while we were having dinner, Wilma told me that she would go on a trip with our neighbor, Mrs. Anderson. This was not the first time that Wilma and Mrs. Anderson were going on a trip together. I couldn't really prove that Wilma was lying, and that she'll be going on a trip with another man. However, I thought it was a little odd, so I decided to do a little investigation on my own, while my wife went to the supermarket to buy groceries. Mrs. Anderson waters her plants in the garden every day, so I nonchalantly greeted her. "Hello, Mrs. Anderson."
Oh, hello, Henry. What a nice weather, isn't it? It's perfect for gardening. Aren't you with Wilma today?
Fine weather indeed. My wife went out to buy some groceries. Mrs. Anderson and I talked a little about trivial matters, but she didn't mention about her upcoming trip with Wilma. Normally she would talk about stuff like that whenever we chat a little like this, but she never mentioned anything about it to me, so I thought that she didn't plan to tell me about it.
Wilma always goes with Mrs. Anderson, so I was almost certain that Wilma was hiding something from me. I then asked my wife where she would be going for the trip. Then I happily sent her off on her trip. Right after Wilma hopped into the taxi to the airport, I immediately took action because it was a time-sensitive matter. I called the detective agency that I already contracted, and I told them about where my wife was headed, and I asked them to follow her. The detective agency's agent was very fast with her job. Without a moment of delay, she found my wife, and she started sending me pictures of her and another man. Just as I thought, my wife went on a trip with her lover. I then saw the picture that she sent me of my wife and the man kissing. I was happy to receive some definitive evidence, but at the same time, I felt despair and sadness. After receiving a picture of my wife and the man walking into a hotel, I immediately called my wife. She then picked up the phone immediately. You seem to be having a lot of fun on your trip.
Of course. I'm having a lot of fun with Mrs. Anderson and the girls.
Is that so? I'm glad to hear that. Actually, I'm in California too. I was assigned to a sudden business trip in California, so I hopped onto the flight after yours.
What?
No need to be so surprised. More importantly, where are you right now? Mrs. Anderson always helps us a lot, so since we're all in California, how about the three of us meet up for dinner? When I said that, I could tell that my wife was upset. She's very easy to read when she's caught. Wilma then told me that she was on a trip with her girlfriends, so I couldn't disturb their bonding time. That's when I dropped another bomb on her. I showed her a live video of Mrs. Anderson and her granddaughter skating happily at an ice rink. That day, when I had a chat with Mrs. Anderson, she didn't have anything planned with Wilma, but she told me that her granddaughter will be visiting from Texas. So I gave her the ice skating ticket that I was planning to use with my wife. While my wife was having an affair in California, Mrs. Anderson, who was supposed to be with her, was ice skating with her granddaughter. I then told her everything that I knew, and I also revealed to her that I had a picture of her and another man as pieces of evidence of the love affair. Wilma went mad and started trying to make excuses and explain herself.
No, it's not what you think! Don't misunderstand the situation!
How does she not expect me to believe her when she went into a hotel with another man? I was appalled by all her lies, and I'd had enough of them. So I told her, I don't mind, just enjoy your trip there. However, you won't have a house to go home to after that. I heard her say, wait a minute, but I didn't want to hear her voice anymore, so I hung up the phone immediately. After that, my wife ran out of the hotel with all speed, but I of course didn't plan on forgiving her at all. Meanwhile, I was packing up all her things, and I arranged for the boxes to be sent to Wilma's parents' house. I then hired a professional to get the house key changed, and I waited alone at home. Wilma must have hopped onto the earliest flight available after that, because by night, she already arrived home. She then tried to open the door, but it wouldn't open. I replaced the key and locked it, of course. Wilma probably noticed that I changed the locks, because she banged on the door and shouted that I open it. That's why I kindly opened the door for her, and when she walked into the house, she was shocked when she noticed that all her things were gone.
Where is all my stuff?
Your things aren't here anymore. I already sent them all to your parents' house. We're going to get divorced soon anyway, so it would all be meaningless to have your stuff here, right? By the way, I already told your father about what happened, so don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it? What? A divorce? No, I form with that. I'm sorry, Henry. That was just a passing fancy.
Sorry, but I can't forgive you for this one. The only reason I let you into this house is so that you can sign this paper. I then handed the paper to her after uttering those words. Wilma even bowed her head to the ground, hoping that I would forgive her. But instead of forgiving her, I said, you chose to have an affair, so you of course are aware of the consequences that come with it, right? I don't plan on forgiving you for this, and I will request alimony from you and that man. Please, get out of here right after you sign this. Or do you prefer that I call your father and make him drag you home? While we were talking about her father, Wilma received a call from him. Why don't you answer the phone? Wilma went pale and shook her head. She then signed the official divorce registration paper. Honestly, my father-in-law is a very scary person, and Wilma even got slapped in the face once because that was how he disciplined his children. There's no problem if one lives a serious and honest life, but he despised people who did not follow the principles of humanity. I'm sure he was extremely upset when his daughter cheated on me. After that, I asked Wilma everything she knew about the man. She told me his name and his workplace. She told me that the man was her senior at work when she was still working before we got married. Wilma then continued to tell me that they happened to bump into each other while they were waiting for the bus to arrive. They then exchanged phone numbers, and they ended up having an affair after that. Wilma cried and said that she admitted to the affair, but that she still loves me. How dare she say that? I then told Wilma to pack up all her things, and she left within the few days I gave her. Meanwhile, I stayed at a business hotel, and I requested alimony from the man while I was there. I also sent certification content to her boss, and the man wasn't fired from his job, but I heard that he was moved to a post in the countryside. The man was single and didn't have a wife or children, but he was supposed to be promoted to a higher rank after completing the important task that he was assigned to. I think that it was the best time to bring him down. I then demanded tens of thousands of dollars from each of them. My mother-in-law was worried about what other people might think of them, so she paid the alimony in one lump sum. She also apologized on behalf of her daughter's actions. As for the man, the lawyer that I hired was a very competent person, so she was able to convince the man to pay for the alimony in one lump sum from his savings. She saved me a crucial amount of time dealing with him. The man eventually lost his job after that, and he had little left of his savings, so he ended up getting his whole life ruined. Meanwhile, Wilma got kicked out of the house and had no choice but to go home to her parents because all her stuff was there. However, her father scolded her and cursed her, so she called me crying and begged me to get back together. Wilma said that she wanted to come home to my embrace. However, I don't have feelings for her anymore, so I told her, "You don't live here anymore. You live with your parents now, right? Your mother graciously paid the alimony for you in one lump sum. You should show filial piety to your parents from now on." I told her that, and then I hung up the phone. It's probably emotionally distressing for Wilma to go home to her strict and scary father, but since her parents paid for her wrongdoings, she probably won't be able to run away from them unless she pays off the debt she owes them. Condolences to her. Never have I ever thought that I would be betrayed by my wife after 3 years of marriage. But on a positive note, we didn't have a child together, so at least there's that.
My husband is a very strict and domineering man. Whenever I try to talk back to him, he says,
I'm the one who's supporting you financially. I will never allow you to talk back to me.
I was 30 years old when I met my husband, so I wanted to get married fast. I was very desperate to find a husband, so I was impatient at the time. My friends, siblings, and cousins already found their partners. Everyone around me was married except for me. I felt left out and felt pressured to get married. My friends told me to go on a dating app. That is how I met my husband. When Frank and I first met, he didn't show any signs of a domineering person. All I saw was a very kind and gentle man. We went on a few dates before our relationship became official, but he never showed this domineering personality even then. However, on the first day of living together as a married couple, an incident occurred that showed his true colors. I'm a morning person, so I woke up early and I started preparing breakfast. I then ate breakfast after that. Then, when I brought my husband's breakfast to the table, he noticed the plates on the sink, and he realized that I had already eaten breakfast before him. To my surprise, he started shouting.
Jessica? You already had breakfast? You ate before me?
I didn't know what was happening. With a perplexed look, I told him, I'm a morning person and you were still sleeping, so I ate after cooking breakfast. He then gave me a menacing look, and he said with an angry tone,
It's expected that you wake up before me, preparing breakfast for me as well. I don't have any complaints about that. But what I don't like is how you ate before me. Why did you eat before I even touched the food? I'm supposed to eat first, before you can eat.
Hearing those words coming out of his mouth, I was shocked and I was lost for words.
My parents usually eat together, but my mother is also an early bird, so there are times when they didn't eat together too. That's why I didn't know what was wrong about eating at separate times. That day, I didn't feel great, but days like that continued to occur throughout our marriage. My husband, of course, is working, but I'm also working too. However, I might not earn as much as my husband does, but I work full-time too, so I earn enough salary to have Social Security. However, it seems like my husband doesn't care about that because he always puts himself first. Like, for example, one day he told me in the morning that he wanted to eat meat for dinner, so I stopped by the grocery store on my way home to buy meat so that I can cook it for dinner. However, when I served him the meat dish that I cooked, he shouted,
I feel like eating fish right now. I can't eat this meat in front of me. Hurry up and cook a fish dish for me.
He scolded me like it was my fault. But Frank, you told me this morning that you wanted to eat meat tonight. So I stopped by the grocery store on my way home from work so that I could cook a meat dish for you. That was your request.
I don't care about what I said in the morning. I feel like eating fish right now. So stop complaining and serve me fish.
How do you expect me to know that feels like eating fish right now when you clearly told me that you wanted meat? I screamed back at him. He then dumped the whole dish into the sink as he marched out the door, closing it with a loud bang. Another problem I have with my husband is that he never admits that he's wrong. One day, while I was chilling in the living room, sitting on the sofa reading a book on my day off, I received a call from my father-in-law asking me when I was going to arrive at the house. I had no idea what he was talking about, so I called my mother-in-law to ask about it. Apparently, my husband told his parents that he and I will visit them for dinner that day. However, I never heard about the dinner, so I told my mother-in-law that I had no idea about it. Then my husband gave me a menacing look and lost his temper and flew into a rage.
I specifically told you about the dinner at my parents' house tonight. You just forgot about it. Don't blame me for the forgetfulness. How dare you blame me? You're the worst!
He replied, to which I responded, I've never heard about the dinner at your parents' house until today. But he never admitted his mistake. My parents-in-law's house is located about an hour and a half away from our house, so we ended up not having dinner with them that day, and we rescheduled the dinner to a different day. However, my husband said to me,
My parents had an unpleasant experience because of you. You are scum! You also blame people for your mistakes. You're not nice at all!
He screamed at me. I've had enough of this hellish life with him. I met a friend who I hadn't seen in a long time, so I told her everything about my nightmare of a married life. She then suggested that I obtain a license to qualify for a better job. I was exhausted with my life with my husband, and I can't go home without any plans after if I decided to get a divorce. But I couldn't deny the truth that my job wasn't enough for me to be able to live alone. That is why I decided to challenge myself. One day, I brought a book home with me after work. My husband asked me what I was doing, so I told him that I was aiming to get a certification, to which he laughed at and said,
There's no way a dull person like you will be able to pass the exam and get certified. Think of your level of intelligence. People like you are suited to be used by people like me.
He said that and laughed at me. I couldn't forgive him for saying that to me, his wife. Even if he thinks that he was just joking, his insensitive words added fuel to my burning desire to be independent. So I continued to act normally when my husband was with me. However, after he went to bed, I started studying in the living room, like my life depended on it. Well, my life did depend on it. Of course, I diligently did the household chores too. My husband is a domineering man, so even though I was exhausted every day for having to do housework after a long day's work in the office, and even though I contributed to the household expenses, he thought that wives should be the ones to do all the housekeeping. That is why once he sits on the sofa to watch TV, he never stands up or does anything else. Even when he needs the remote controller, he calls me to hand it to him. He uses me like a servant, demanding this and that. I felt offended and was fuming inside, but I wanted to show him what I've got, so I studied very hard. After that, I passed the exams, and I finally got a license and became a certified professional. That is why I quit my part-time job, and I looked for a job where I could use my newly acquired license. After an interview with a company, they seemed to like me because they immediately told me the result. They wanted to hire me right there and then. Of course, my income significantly increased. Just as I was thinking about talking to my husband about the divorce, he thankfully brought up the topic. It seems like my husband was in a very bad mood that day, so when I took several minutes more than expected to prepare a bath for him,
Prepare the bath in a way that I can get in there, no matter what time I come home. How many times do I have to tell you so that you will actually remember it?
but I just got home from work too.
So what if you just got home? It's expected that you finish preparing before I come home. How many times do I have to tell you about this? Everything you do is wrong. Is there anything you can do, right? I want to get a divorce!
He was so angry that his tone was fuming, so I smiled at him and showed him the divorce papers. I'm so happy to hear that! So you're going to divorce me, right? Alrighty then, fill this out now and don't forget your signature at the bottom, because I will submit this immediately. My husband was not anticipating that, so he was shocked.
What is that?
It's obvious, isn't it? It's a divorce registration paper. My husband pointed at the divorce paper and started shaking, but I was very happy thinking that I am finally able to get a divorce. We have different values, so let's get a divorce. You wanted a divorce too, so I'll tell your parents about this, okay?
Wait! I will forgive you if you apologize to me right now! Hurry up now! Kneel and bow down before me! Show me how sorry you are, and promise me that you will never talk back to me again! If you do all that, I will forgive you!
I don't need you to forgive me because I've always wanted to divorce you!
What? You've got to be kidding me! Stop messing around with my mind! There's no way that someone like you will be able to live alone!
My husband shouted those words at me, so I showed the license that I acquired after all the studying. I also talked to him about my new job, and I told him that I don't have any problem with my new income. I'm sure my husband never expected this to happen because he was so dumbfounded. He had his jaw hanging open while listening to what I was saying. I then packed up all my stuff and immediately reported my parents about the whole situation. Of course, I also told them everything that my husband did to me and also how he wanted to get a divorce too. The new company that hired me is a large corporation, so they prepared an employee residence for me, which is fully furnished, by the way. That is why I was able to move immediately. Everyone at my new workplace was very warm and welcoming. It was a very rewarding workplace. Frank sent me messages stating that he will forgive everything I did if I go back home immediately, so I ignored his messages and I contacted his parents instead. They then went to his house and scolded him. Frank was the one that said that he wanted a divorce, and I also revealed to them that I was being abused because of his domineering behaviors towards me and the abusive language he uses on me. Because of that, his father beat the hell out of him, and he was forced to sign the divorce papers. I am thankful to my parents-in-law for helping me. I then heard rumors about my ex-husband after that. Apparently, Frank got disowned by his parents and he now lives alone at his apartment. What's worse is that his room now reeks of stinky garbage. It's now a dumpster because he never cleans. He lived with his parents before he lived with me, and I did all the household chores when we lived together. Even after the divorce, he still had a temperament of being domineering. So he couldn't bring himself to do the chores. With no one cleaning up after him, his house was soon filled with garbage. One of the neighbors complained about the smell, so he received a warning to get evicted from his apartment. He doesn't wash his clothes in the washing machine, and he doesn't take his dirty laundry clothes out of the laundromat too. So he wears the same clothes every day. Because of that, no one wanted to talk to him at work. His employees couldn't trust him with the customers anymore. So his boss thought of firing him from his job. The reason why I knew all this is because my coworker at my new job happens to be a former employee at the company Frank works for. She told me every juicy bit of information. He really got what he deserved. I am truly grateful that I was able to divorce that man. I live together with my son and my husband. However, there is an annoying mother at my son's kindergarten. Her name is Violet, and she is the mother of one of my son's good friends, Sean. Violet is always late in every meeting and gathering. When she's not late, she cancels last minute. There was never a time when she arrived on time. She never even apologized for being late when she was assigned work in the kindergarten ever. Violet, I informed you about the general cleaning yesterday. Huh? I did go to the general cleaning. But you arrived just when we were about to finish, right? If you're late, everyone will have to work more, so I specifically told you not to arrive late. Why are you so worked up about this? It's just a kindergarten general cleaning, right? It's the same whoever goes. As long as the kindergarten is cleaned. That's not what I'm having a problem with. I'm talking about equality. If you don't work the same amount as everyone else, it would be fair to everyone. All right. I get what you're saying. All I have to do is not be late next time, right? You're so annoying with your yapping. This is the kind of attitude she shows us every time. This is why, frankly speaking, the other moms hate her too. However, Violet's son, Sean, is a good boy, and Sean is good friends with my son, Charlie. And one day, while I was catching up with the other moms, the topic of a trip that we've been planning came up. We can go to Disneyland next week, right? I'm glad that our schedules finally got coordinated.
Yes, you're right, and I'm so excited. My husband told me that I should take a break every once in a while and have fun with you guys, so let's have all the fun we can have.
The children can't hide their excitement too. Actually, the three of us have been talking about going on a trip to Disneyland, but we couldn't get our part-time job days off to overlap until now. And just when our part-time job days off overlap, one of the children fell sick, so We had to push the trip farther and farther down the calendar. However, this time around, we were finally able to take a couple days off on the same days the children didn't fall ill. So we finally were able to decide a date to go to Disneyland. The only thing left to do is buy plane tickets and make a hotel reservation. With that said, Nancy, Delilah, and I went out for coffee to make plans for the very long-awaited trip. However, one day, Violet learned about this trip from who knows where.
Hey, I heard that you and the other moms are going to Disneyland.
Huh? Yeah, you heard right, but...
Just the right timing. I just was thinking of going to Disneyland too. Can I go with you guys?
Violet started asking me to go on trips with us. I looked at the other moms, hoping for them to back me up.
There's no way she's going to come with us, right? Ugh, I don't want her to come.
Nancy and Delilah didn't utter a single word, but I could tell from their expressions on their faces that they don't want Violet to come with us. You can't just suddenly say that, because we've been planning this for a long time now.
It's not a big deal if two people join you, right? My son said that he wants to go to Disneyland too.
Even if you say that, we can't take you with us. First of all, you're always late, Violet. Frankly speaking, we can't risk missing on things. If you keep getting late every time, we're not sure if you'll be able to arrive on time during the early morning flight.
Don't worry about me getting late. I won't be late for a vacation, you know.
I don't believe that Violet would arrive on time, but we didn't have any plans to bring her with us. That is why we were somehow able to dodge her question. But a few days later, my son Charlie told me,
Hey, Mom, Sean is going to Disneyland with us, right? I'm so happy and excited.
Huh? Where did you hear that from, Charlie?
I heard it from Sean and his mom.
Hearing those words come out of my son's mouth, I realized Violet beat us to it. Since the kids already know about the trip, and if they tell the other kids in kindergarten about it, I can't say no anymore to Violet joining us. Charlie is good friends with Sean after all. That is why he is very happy when he learned that Sean was coming too. I tried to talk about the situation with Nancy and Delilah, but we couldn't say no to the kids who were already very excited about the trip. That is why we had no choice but to say yes to Violet and Sean. That is why I added Violet to the list, and I went over to plan things again, and then made an additional reservation. Then on the day before the trip, I warned Violet, please don't be late this time. You won't be able to board the plane if you arrive late. To which Violet replied,
Don't you worry about it. I know. I'm super excited about the trip tomorrow.
Violet was super excited and went after that. However, the day of the trip came, and just as we thought, Violet was late again.
See, just as we expected, Violet is not here yet. Is she coming or not?
What? Really? Where in the world is she? There's no time anymore. I'll try to contact her. When I called Violet, she told me that she just woke up and that she was still preparing and asked me to stop the plane for her. She said something very idiotic, so we were all pissed off. Our flight was already boarding, so we got onto the plane without them. The children looked disappointed, but I explained to them, the rest of the people in the plane will be inconvenienced if we stop the plane. We don't want to inconvenience anyone, do we? They still looked disappointed, but they nodded in agreement. When we arrived in California, I turned off the airplane mode. I received several missed calls from Violet and a message saying that she had already arrived at the airport but she couldn't find us. Violet was furious that we left her, but it was her fault in the first place for not arriving at the airport on time. Despite the one being at fault, Violet cursed us and started calling us names. So we finally had enough of Violet and her tardiness. I warned you not to be late this time around, didn't I? We bought plane tickets. Did you expect the airplane to wait for one person? After I told her that, Violet sent us a long message mostly calling us names. So I suggested that she hop onto the next flight instead of, to which she replied,
California is too complicated. I don't know how to get there. So come back and pick me up.
Everyone was so appalled by her that we'd had enough of Violet. That is why we decided to ignore her messages and we chose to go to Disneyland without her instead. We had a lot of fun at Disneyland together with the kids. After a whole day of fun at the amusement park, we went home. When we sent the kids off to kindergarten the next school day, Violet was waiting for us and complained,
Why did you leave my son and me at the airport? You're the worst person ever.
What do you mean by that? Didn't I warn you plenty of times? I told you to never be late again. But you're the one who was late, right? There's no way I could easily stop a plane from taking off.
I don't know, and I don't care. Because it's your fault that my son is sad and feels left out.
Why is she angry at us when she was the one who arrived late? I have no idea how her mind works. More importantly, please pay me back for the hotel and airplane fee. You told me that you'll come with us, so I added you and your son to the trip. And I paid for the trip with my credit card.
Huh? What are you saying? My son and I didn't hop on the plane, nor did we stay at the hotel. So there's no way I'm going to pay for those expenses.
What? You're the one who said you'd be coming, but you didn't come. This is your problem, not mine. You have to pay for these expenses or else.
Huh? There's no way I'm gonna pay for that.
Violet was late again and she didn't want to pay for her transportation and accommodation. Honestly, I had no idea what to do with the situation. But a few days later, Violet's mother, Lola, came to the house.
Hi, I'm sorry for coming here without prior notice. I'm Violet's mother, and Violet told me about your trip to Disneyland last week.
Huh? Yes.
However, she also told me that she and Sean were left behind at the airport. I couldn't stand not doing something about this, so I came here to address the matter of concern.
I felt bad about Sean not being able to have fun together with us just because of his mother's actions. That is why I told Lola about everything that happened. Everything I told her was news to Lola, so she asked me to confirm.
Is that true?
Yes, Violet is always late to every gathering at the kindergarten, and there are days when she doesn't even come. This is why I warned her plenty of times not to be late this time, but she was late as usual. My son and the other mother's children were with us, so we had no choice but to hop on the plane. I suggested that Violet hops onto the next flight with Sean, but she didn't.
What in the world is my daughter thinking? I'm truly sorry for her actions. I thought that the kids were not on good terms.
Not at all. Sean and my son, Charlie, are very good friends. They get along well with the other kids at the kindergarten, too. That is why the kids felt bad when they were told that Sean couldn't join them at Disneyland.
I am truly sorry for what my daughter has done. I will pay you back the whole amount tomorrow. So I thank you, and I'm sorry for what happened.
Lola thanked me and apologized, and then went home. A few days later, Violet and her husband, Xavier, came to our house.
I am truly sorry for what my wife did. This is the payment for the canceled trip. Violet, you should apologize too.
I'm sorry.
Violet was probably scolded by her mother and her husband because she looked timid and didn't even look at my face.
I will make sure that my wife won't bother you anymore in the future.
I'm sorry too for making Sean sad for not being able to go to Disneyland. My son Charlie chose a souvenir for Sean. Please give it to Charlie and tell him that Sean wished that he could have been there with them.
Thank you very much.
Violet and Xavier made the payment for the canceled trip. After that, they went home and Xavier continued to scold Violet. But just as when I was thinking that, no one changes drastically in a day. Me and the other mothers were very surprised that Violet's habit of being late was gone. Violet now comes earlier than the appointed time and she even helps properly with the responsibilities at the kindergarten. According to what I heard, Violet was forced to move in with her mother, so that Violet won't become a nuisance to the people around her anymore. Because of that, she is being monitored 24/7, and it seems like it left a huge damage in Violet. That made sense to me. Her being timid that day was probably because she didn't like the idea of living with her mother who would monitor her. It wasn't because she was sorry for what she did. But, well, she's completely deserved this punishment, and she will probably be even more constrained. But it serves her right. Chaos happened at the wedding of a devoted groom, Grayson, and my cousin/best friend, Bridget the bride. The bride and groom have been together since high school, and their parents had also had a good relationship with each other. Both of them are good looking, and they are a picture-perfect couple. What's more is that they both have wonderful personalities, and I love them so much. Bridget and I have another cousin, and her name is Cruella. Little did we know that she was planning to ruin Chase and Bridget's wedding. Cruella and I are the same age, and whenever we're alone together, she keeps on talking behind people's backs. Bridget the bride is very beautiful, but she used to get low scores on tests when we were in high school. So every time Bridget gets a low score during a test, Cruella would go to Bridget and say,
All you have is beauty but no brains. You're always thinking about boys. That's why you're so dumb.
Cruella disrespected Bridget like that. By the way, I was way smarter than Cruella, so she didn't disrespect me like that, but Cruella was probably just jealous of Bridget. Grayson and Bridget have been in a relationship for a long time now, and he joins family gatherings a lot, so I was very happy when I learned that they were getting married. When the wedding was finalized, the groom came with us when Bridget tried the wedding dress on. As for the food to be served at the reception, the groom, bride, and I chose what to serve. That is why, on the day before the wedding, I couldn't sleep because I was so excited. That is how much I looked forward to the biggest event of their lives. Then, on the day of the wedding, the bride and groom were in a very good mood from the start. However, Cruella got drunk and stood up from her seat. She marched down the aisle and headed straight to the bride.
You're lucky to be married when you have an empty brain. You're dumb, so you probably seduced Grayson, didn't you? Poor Grayson, he fell into your trap. White doesn't look good on you at all. The color looks better on me. Grayson will probably look better wearing the dress than you.
This might sound offensive, but Grayson has a very pretty face. Cruella kept on walking around and spouting out insults loudly. The happy couple on one of the most important days of their lives. Cruella's face doesn't look bad, and some might say she's pretty. But Bridget was more popular with the boys in the class, so I think that Cruella was very jealous even to this day. Bridget might have been popular, but she and Grayson were already in a relationship, so she didn't entertain the other boys in class. Grayson was also popular among the girls, so with all that, Cruella hates Bridget all the more and holds a grudge against her. Bridget actually didn't want to invite Cruella to her wedding, but since Cruella is part of the family, Bridget had no choice but to extend the invitation to Cruella. Before the wedding day, Bridget came to talk to me.
I have a really bad feeling about Cruella coming to this wedding.
Honestly, Bridget used to ignore Cruella with her annoying pestering, but Cruella didn't stop doing that, so Bridget kept on complaining to me about Cruella. Bridget was worried about Cruella ruining her wedding, but I was almost certain that Cruella wouldn't do anything crazy to this holy event. So when she marched to the front that moment, I got very nervous and panicked a bit. What in the world does she think she's doing? Seeing what was happening in front of them, everyone was horrified, and Bridget's parents went pale. Just when I was hoping for someone to stop Cruella, Bridget threw something back at Cruella. Then a blunt thud was heard, and screams and an angry voice reverberated through the reception hall. It seems like Bridget threw the microphone at Cruella. Cruella then crouched and winced in pain. The microphone that flew from the bride's hand onto Cruella's face fell to the floor and made several thuds as it rolled onto the carpet. Cruella was furious and raged.
What in the world are you doing? That is my line! I knew I shouldn't have invited you to this wedding!
Bridget and Cruella started pulling at each other's hair and quarreled. Their parents tried to stop them, but Cruella's face was bleeding and it was horrifying. After that, Bridget and Cruella were pulled onto the side, and Bridget's right dress was stained with blood, so she changed into a different dress. The guests were buzzing and whispering after the bride and groom, so Bridget's parents apologized on the behalf of their daughter and the groom. They said sorry to the guests, and after that, an ambulance arrived and Cruella was brought to the hospital. I later heard that her face got fractured. Cruella's mom was there at the wedding, and she was just as evil as her daughter. Even during the introduction of the family members at the church, she said, "I can't hear a thing. Could you please speak louder?" Cruella's mother jeered at Bridget. When Cruella bled after getting hit by a microphone, she went insane and followed her daughter to the hospital. But frankly speaking, everyone felt relieved that both Cruella and her mother were gone. Then after a while, the bride and groom appeared again in front of everyone after changing their clothes. No one was there to ruin their big day anymore, so the wedding ceremony continued without a hitch and ended successfully. However, a few days later, Cruella and her mother barged into Bridget's house and complained. "You ruined my daughter's face. What in the world were you thinking? I demand $50,000 in alimony for what you've done." She said that Cruella's face had a fracture, but it wasn't obvious at all, so she demanded $50,000. I thought for a moment whether she must get plastic surgery or something. Bridget might have overreacted and acted out of her senses, but Cruella ruined her wedding on top of all these years of pestering. So there is no doubt that Bridget had a lot of anger built up inside her. Of course, Bridget was very angry. Who in their right mind wouldn't be angry when their wedding was ruined? But instead of apologizing, Cruella and her mother demanded alimony. They even threatened to sue Bridget. However, the relatives, including my parents, came to stop them.
Get a hold of yourselves, you shameless pigs!
This is a result of you trying to ruin Bridget's wedding.
That's right. What did Bridget ever do to you? You're just resenting her without anything to resent her about.
The relatives shouted angrily. Even our grandparents joined in the fight.
Her face is fractured? What fracture? It's not noticeable at all! If you compare it to all the pestering that Cruella has done to Bridget, that's just a little scratch! If you bring any more trouble, and you keep on complaining about this, I will exclude you from the inheritance!
After my grandfather said that, Cruella and her mother fell silent. By the way, our grandfather owns plenty of land. That is why it is rumored that the inheritance will be quite huge. It's not like Bridget was especially loved and adored by our relatives and other grandparents, but they knew that Cruella and her mother kept on bullying Bridget, so they were aware that Bridget went through a lot of hardships because of Cruella and her mother. That is why everyone helped her. Bridget is a very good person who doesn't do anything problematic. That is why it is a mystery as to why Cruella hated her. That is why I'm sure that everyone was shocked with what happened at the wedding. They thought that Bridget must have a good reason to act that way. After that, Cruella and her mother barged into Bridget's house and said, "Look at you, what you've done to my daughter's face!" However, they wanted to inherit the money from the grandparents, so...
Why would you pay me alimony when you ruined my face?
Cruella continued complaining, but her mother told her, "Cruella, just hold it in and shut up!"
Huh? Why would I shut up? My face is ruined, can't you see?
It's all your fault. You're now suffering from the consequences of your actions. Just be patient and shut up.
Why would you say that to me, Mom? Unbelievable!
Fast forward a couple years later, Bridget and Grayson lived happily ever after with their 3 children. By the way, as for Cruella, who still hadn't changed her personality, she still doesn't have a partner to this day. As for me, I got married too, but of course I didn't invite Cruella and her mother. I mean, my parents firmly refused to invite them.
I won't let them ruin your wedding too.
Well, such a conflict might have taken place, but we're relatives. So we see them during Thanksgiving and New Year, whether we want to or not. During those times, Cruella would say to Bridget,
I can't get married because you ruined my face. You should take responsibility for that.
Cruella kept on yelling and complaining, but our grandparents are still keeping a close eye on them. So Cruella's mother, who was afraid that she wouldn't inherit any wealth, would say,
Cruella, stop that! The reason why no one wants to marry you is because you have a bad attitude.
I have to admit that it was laughable to watch them like that. I don't really like my aunt, but she had a really good point when she said that. She's right. Cruella probably won't get married in this lifetime if she doesn't change her attitude.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.